I guess we're live, whatever. I'll just continue the conversation I was just having on TeamSpeak about, Phil was on the whale pool TeamSpeak last night talking to them. One of the things he mentioned was, hey, we're going to allow large holders of BFX coin at our discretion, depending on whether they like the person and want them to be an investor. They will allow them to convert that to equity, which I thought was interesting because they're trading so low, and the fact that they're allowing trading of their debt means that they can just tell people to go buy their tokens and then allow them to become equity holders. They don't even have to buy it themselves.
I essentially thought they were going to buy back their own debt and then sell it off to anyone they want to become shareholders. Yeah.
They could just work it out with the third party.
Yeah. It gives a higher advantage to whales who can afford to just buy up the company's debt. Oh, I think he's here.
Okay, hey guys, sorry.
Hello.
What's up?
We're hearing you loud and clear.
Cheers.
Let me just switch my audio here. Yes, I just wanted something in recording that was like a dissenting opinion, because I feel like right now the only thing that's being voiced is like everything's fine, Bitfinex is going to come back, blah blah blah. There's a lot of stuff elsewhere that's like, Bitfinex is not going to be fine. This will take either forever to pay off or won't be paid off. This is an all-around general shitty situation. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today. The other part of it is I feel like people completely forgot about the previous downtime. It's like we had this shit show that just happened, but there was a shit show a month ago, 2 months ago that just happened. And it's like, why didn't you leave then? I don't know.
A lot of people, I feel like the only reason they didn't leave is they're desperate for margin trading within U.S. registration.
Why did I stay on MT Gox? Because I was fucking stupid, and I learned from that mistake.
So let me just pull up the list of stuff to talk about. Let me screen share it here 1 second.
So I'm going to play a little clip in the meantime. I pulled this from the June 21st recording that's up on Elux's SoundCloud. And I thought it was interesting. This is when Finex was having all their data issues. And there's a lot of speculations. We still don't know what happened exactly with the hack. And one of the speculations is that, somebody must have imaged the server or somehow got into it when it's like an inside job at the data center. And so I thought this was an interesting little clip. Here, I'll play it.
There's something more insidious happening, and we don't know what it is.
So, I mean, when Phil comes on, he's a really good PR guy, and he is pretty straightforward about a lot of things, but it's the small clues, right? Like, it's the little things he kind of slips up and says that I think really maybe paint the picture of what's actually going on behind the scenes, that just right behind the veil that he doesn't really want to disclose. And I think they knew that there was some major fuckery going on when they moved to that data center, and apparently it was something more insidious, right? But I feel like they kind of had a clue, but what are they going to do? Like the damage is done at that point. But I guess we can talk more about how it actually happened, what we know.
If we want to tinfoil hat this, we can also discuss that they moved from their data center that they just moved from to AWS rather than rebuilding in place. So, are those servers no longer secure? It's kind of the other thought. If we want to follow that theory.
That is an interesting point.
Oh, so when they came back online, it was they were on AWS at that point, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
After they just did a data center move, so that kind of tells you that maybe they don't trust the infrastructure there right now. That may just be part of their DR recovery, get us back up and running plan, or that could mean that they don't trust what they're currently on, previously on at this point.
I think that's a safe assumption.
So yeah, these are just the things I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you guys can see this
Yep,
or
I
not.
can see it.
Okay. So yeah, basically, you know, Bitfinex created this scenario where they're encouraging people to continue to use their platform despite re-establishing trust. And you know, I agree with Phil. The longer it's down, the worse it gets. But you can't expect people to want to come back, obviously, based on what happened in the current format. So, like, real quick, let's just go over the last. So, June 17th, they had the data center migration, like you guys were talking about. There was downtime then. So, exactly what happened then? Like, did we ever conclusively find out what that was even about?
So we don't know the technicals behind it, but we know they moved from site A to a site B, and there's some difficulty around that. They found some network performance issues, so they downed while they were troubleshooting that, and that's as far as we got.
So
So,
are we
like, even that. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, so are we assuming that it's possible that some kind of backdoor was opened during server migration then?
It's highly possible. We don't know any details on the hack, so I don't really think it's worth speculating on. But we know they just did data center move, and then we know that they chose rather than, after being down for a week, they chose rather than rebuilding in place to go to AWS. So maybe they wanted to preserve the scene so some forensic analysts could look at it, or maybe they didn't trust the infrastructure. We have no way of knowing.
So they
And it would
migrated.
make
Go ahead.
it would make sense that their DR plan would basically try to address any possible threat vectors immediately once they're compromised. So it doesn't really tell us, I mean, as Nomad was saying, it doesn't really tell you anything that they implemented this, just that they had a plan that they're following.
Right. So they migrated, and they kept that migration, right? That location.
Yes, they're still on AWS right now.
So even then, there was all this fuckery. People were pissed. Like somebody had said, they were editing active orders, basically. So it's like, where's the outrage for that? There wasn't. I don't think there was enough outrage for that, and that led to this situation directly, I think.
How are orders being edited? I'm interested.
Nomad can explain it better than me, but basically they took down the order book, shut off the exchange, and then re-enabled it, allowing people to move stuff.
So when they went down for their 24-hour period during their data center migration, they had 3 failed start attempts, right? So they had one where they were up for like 15 minutes, price dropped $20, and then they paused it. They had one where they were up like 5 minutes and they paused it. That third time that they came back up, they knew that it was going to drop, and they removed stop orders and settled them off book. But if you got somebody who had a stop order, you know, you're watching your P&L drop, even if they settle it off the book at a later point. You know, you're still watching your position fail. So yeah, there's that.
So there were people who lost a large amount of money for that reason at that time, right? I think Nomad was the one who came forward and said people were contacting him regarding problems then.
Yeah, there was people asking me if it was an API issue or if I knew of a way to pursue this through legal means, because in a normal situation, like in a normal exchange, if they stop the matching engine, they're not editing your active positions, right? So if you have a stop order, it's just going to run your stop.
So they brought it back up, and things were seemingly okay. I don't know. I mean, how that was handled even then, even looking back on it now, was like insanity. But especially now. I mean, love PGP. He's a great guy, but let's get real here. Thousands of dollars were lost because of, again, their negligence. Migration Center was bad. The migration. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that other than
It's just
a lot of
crazy.
people.
The only thing to be said is it happened. They had a match. They had networking problems. They stopped for 24 hours. They came back up and it dumped to like what 550 at that point, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. So I guess that was your leave the exchange signal, and many people did. I know Nomad, you took out a lot of your stuff, right?
Yeah, most of the I would say more than half the bots were shut off at that point.
So everything pretty much stayed the same from our end. I mean, I don't know specifically what changed as far as the data center thing is concerned. So then we get to August 1st, 2nd. They report this security breach and halt trading, but nobody knows why. Can we talk about the BitGo real quick? Because I don't fully understand the
Absolutely.
multi-sig stuff. Like,
I'd love to talk about BitGo because they signed every one of those transactions that went out the door, uh, giving money to the hacker, and that is exactly what their business model is built around preventing.
Am I wrong in saying that BFX disabled quite a few of BitGo's optional security protocols within, uh, however BitGo is integrated within BFX though?
So that sounds to me like they're blaming the victim on that because really, if I pay a security company to come in and be my third party in that kind of a situation, and I then tell them that I want them to not do their job, they should protest and refuse to have a contractual relationship with me because all it's going to do is destroy their image. So that's a clear choice for
So
them.
that makes sense. Okay.
right, according to I think both BitGo and PGP, they said that Bitfinex had a unique protocol, like you said, which was different than most people. But the question was why that was allowed. We don't know what that is still. We don't know how much of that is
Well,
restored versus not restored, right?
one thing that's clear is that there were a lot of things on the Bitfinex website as far as how much funds was being held by BitGo, how much you know how hot the wallet is, and that the fact that they said that there were transaction limits. None of that was true. So somebody lied or somebody was incompetent. I feel like both.
Right. So again, everybody's talking about this kill switch for the signing of the orders when their transfers reach X dollars. Why wasn't there a shut off or a notification? I'm sure there was notifications, but who knows what happened? You know what I mean? So we talked about that. So they're still using BitGo, right? According to their website, I can
Yeah.
pull it up. I know PGP mentioned they're moving that elsewhere, but again, it's like, how can you trust this exchange at this stage of the game? I don't think anybody can.
It looks like they're. I mean, they've got a big wallet that they're keeping everything in. Looks like they got a hot wallet, cold wallet. That's they're still using maybe the multi sig for the quote unquote cold wallet, but it I'm not sure what their setup is, but it seems like they've moved to something that's more manual.
Yeah, I think that's how they're handling withdrawals at the moment.
That's the way they should handle withdrawals from now on for most of the customers. They should make withdrawals once every couple of hours unless you explicitly tell them otherwise, because you have special needs for arbitrage, or you just simply want to hold your coins in a riskier state that can be, emptied at a moment's notice. Otherwise, there should be manual reviews every couple of hours, just like they do at BitMEX. BitMEX has been on the forefront of this wallet security issue, and I wonder how many exchanges are going to have to get hacked before they realize that Bitcoiners demanding I need my money immediately should come with a price. It should be optional, so that
Yeah.
the rest of the people that aren't worried about seeing their transaction on the blockchain within 10 minutes can say, yeah, I actually do want a modicum of security, like 2 hours for somebody to look at the transactions and go, how's our entire cold storage getting drained?
It's just like a random idea I'm throwing out there, but the reason I switched to BitMEX is not only that I'm totally okay with only being able to move around my coins once a day, but uh, I don't know, random idea that I was thinking. If you need your coins immediately and you're moving massive amounts of coins between exchange for either arbitrage or just using them, you could be willing to have, I don't know, pay some exorbitant fee for a manual for you that one time of day. I mean, it's not a lot asking for a cold to hot swap for maybe like 5-10 minutes if you can do 2-3 authentication, multi-sig, etc., some way of proving it's you. But just keeping your coins in a hot wallet for the entire time it's on an exchange is just asking for someone to attempt to take it.
I mean, I really think that having a hot wallet, cold wallet solution where you get to decide whether you want your funds to participate in the hot wallet or your funds to participate in the cold wallet would be the best. And the cold wallet would be something that would only be signed offline with manual human intervention. And of course, they would import something over to generate all the transactions, but something that's done in the most, physically secure way possible.
Yeah, actually, that's a good idea. Making it the user's liability if they're willing to be in hot wallet.
And
Yeah,
we've talked about this before. We've talked about this before with Gox, with Bitstamp, and it's like it should be common sense. It should be explicitly stated on whatever
and
website.
No one's implemented it.
How many exchange hacks done in a very similar fashion need to happen before we have a standard that's actually secure?
Right, and the only way that's going to happen is if people leave Bitfinex. But like Osmond said, if that's their only option in the United States, it's like they have no competition, right? So why should they have to change anything really? So then we get to the August 6th, the haircut announcement. So the question still remains: why was it 36% versus any other amount? Did Bitfinex use any of its own money to pay for the losses? Flivver's saying today that Bitfinex was bankrupt out of this. I don't know how true that is.
PGP said something about keeping operating capital, but other than that, they basically put everything towards the loss. So like enough money to stay running, but like their profits gone. That are anything that wasn't in coin is put towards this loss. I would probably believe that.
Yeah, I feel like they were probably willing to put in a certain amount of money on the side anyway if they had like a margin cascade or something. So, I'm sure they put in something. But they're planning on buying these tokens back, so,
right,
they
but
kept some on the side for that. Like 10%, he said last night.
There's like this continued goalpost of like, trust us, we're going to fix everything, trust us, we're going to fix everything, trust us, we're going to pay everybody back. But eventually, because it hasn't happened yet, and eventually it's just not going to happen, right? So it's like, at what point does anybody believe anything anybody's saying?
I'm personally confused. If they're not using their fees and they decide to do a haircut instead, why, with the people holding the remaining tokens, considering, the majority of people just dump them immediately, why they don't just use their own money now to repay the tokens, take them out of the equation?
Because they physically don't have that capital, right? So they said they would buy each token back at $1. They don't have $70 million, whatever the current amount is. So they want to set up like a buyback schedule for like a 3 to 6 month horizon and try to buy them all back. Now a lot of people are just dumping them. So your argument is if you're a whale or if you just have some funds on there and don't care about it, maybe you're going to buy these at like 20-30 cents on the dollar. So you've made 80 cents per token right now if you do market buy right now. So that's kind of the thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can just buy them in mass and then just sit
Yeah.
back and hope that you get paid your $1 on
If you the gambit here is if you believe Bitfinex is going to buy these back, this is a really good deal, right? But there has to be a belief that the Bitfinex is going to pay this back. So I'm undecided as far as that goes. So I don't really have an opinion. You have to think about what Bitfinex is. They're one of the longest-standing USD exchanges that's been profitable year over year, right? So they may very well get an investor, and that funds may be directly applied towards the debt. That's a very high possibility with the way Silicon Valley throws money around. They're a proven product. So, okay. But if you don't believe it, market sell your BFX tokens at 30 cents and get out.
I I'm not 100% that Bitfinex is going to like go away. I think that there's a chance that they survive, and what it's going to depend on is them talking the large holders and people who are willing to invest fiat in Bitfinex to go right now and buy BFX tokens at 30 cents on the dollar, and then become equity holders, because then they get to wipe that debt without actually having to have any cash on hand. Then they can have a manageable amount of debt to pay back that hopefully they can pay. He was throwing out numbers last night, 10 to 13% is what he thinks it would be. They would be able to pay back if they liquidated everything that they reserved as like working capital. So they have a chunk of money to the side. If they can wipe about 50% of those BFX tokens, they can get a couple more people to buy in at face value. Then there you go. There's your bailout, and they don't have to buy any tokens back at all. They just allow people to become equity holders. So they're buying it, but they're allowing somebody else to buy it that will become a future owner.
And are there fees on those tokens when you buy those?
Well, there's market fees just like everything else, right?
Okay, so it's not everything has a fee. So they're collecting on top of that, right?
Yeah.
But you have to remember, they can't just offer equity to anybody, especially in the United States. You have to be an accredited investor. So I have a feeling that what's going to happen is there's many accounts that took, plus 100K, just south of 1.5 mil loss. I imagine that they'll be offered equity, because I mean, if they get the owner to accept that, it's cheaper for them to pay monthly going forward on a company equity rather than to write them a check. So
I'm interested. Does anyone even know what the company's valued at? I want to.
no, I mean that's kind of the other part. I think Satoshi has a bullet point on this. Is we don't know the company books. We're kind of taking them at face value. Here, we don't know what their valuation.
Because if you're a whale and you decide to go with equity, you may have just traded your shit tokens for shit shares in a company.
To be fair, it's going to take them a little time to be able to have something to present to potential investors. So, I mean, as much as we're sitting here Monday morning quarterbacking this thing and going, well, why don't they have answers? Why haven't we seen everything? It could be fuckery, or it could just be simply they're not going to put anything on the street that they haven't checked twice because they don't want the appearance of fuckery, even if there is none. So that's being objective.
So the other part that people are forgetting when they're talking about this, people want immediate results, but they're in the middle of a legal investigation, man. They may not be able to release any of these details until something's concluded.
So that gets to the very first point of the Google Doc, which is get your fucking money out of Bitfinex right now, because the highest risk time is right now. Like, the best thing for Bitfinex right now is to basically die for a little while, run off of its reserves, and rebuild trust while hopefully not getting sued out of existence. Hopefully people withdrawing enough money where they no longer look like a good target for suing, and people just kind of get over it, forget about it, and move on. And then eventually they improve their practices and people come back. That would be, I think, the optimal situation right now for them to get their volume back and just continue on as normal. They're going to attract way more attention than they want.
The problem is they're already going to attract attention, right? Because a lot of people, there's been many complaints to CFTC. There's people saying that they reported to FBI cybercrime. So I mean, from a U.S. citizen standpoint, you're already with two of our biggest, baddest legal bodies as far as that's concerned, right? I mean, they might get hit with more fines. We have no idea what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, I think anything's on the table. But I think them if they can get some equity investors, that would be positive for them, because that would give them some, relieve some of their debt and give them some money to actually fight some of those legal battles. I mean, if we know anything about Phil, right, he's crafty. If they have a good legal team and they had a disaster plan that included this, that they did some legal research on, there's always a chance they pull through this and set some kind of crazy precedent, which might be positive, because we don't want every exchange that gets hacked to this level to just go under. I hope anytime something happens going forward that people can withdraw whatever percent is left before letting everybody else fight over the dead carcass.
I think that's my biggest issue is like PGP, Flibber, whoever saying like, keep using Bitfinex. That's the best way you can support us. Well, it might be, but it's completely the wrong move as far as most of us are concerned from a risk standpoint, you know?
I feel like I listen in over at Whalepool, and I gotta say, I just feel like there's a conflict of interest going on there. There's a lot of people that I think have money over on there, and they took a haircut, and they just, you're going through the 5 stages of grief, and I think there's a lot of that going on. It's natural. I'm not trying to like fault anybody for it, but then there's also people who held a lot of money over there, and they're, kind of pushing certain ideas, and there may, there's probably a self-interest to that. It's probably not devious. It's probably just completely internal bias, but I feel like I see it.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome. That's pretty much it.
In
Their coins
socialized
are
losses,
hostage.
the socialized losses thing, that wasn't in their terms of service, right?
Correct.
I
That was the
believe
big
so.
surprise for everybody. There is, it's not in their terms of service. So like you're trading on Bitfinex thinking that your only loss is going to be, whatever you close, or if you happen to hold a position the wrong way, $100, right? So then they do the socialized loss, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. It's not like OKCoin or BitMEX where it's printed clearly in their terms of service. If we take a loss, we may take a haircut out of your profits, out of your holdings, etc. So that was
Is
the
that
big shock.
right? Has that been changed in their terms of service? I haven't
Uh,
looked.
I
Not
haven't looked, to be
once.
honest with you. I would doubt it.
And then, did they have any other option besides converting everybody to USD and doing the haircut that way?
I doubt it because they rationalized their loss as U.S. dollar, therefore they're trying to match a U.S. dollar.
Yeah,
And
the only
then,
other way
I
they
mean-
could have done it was against Bitcoin because they had it locked at 604, but it's just extra work. There's no point.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that there was nothing in their terms of service that laid out what they presented to customers as the best option, which I still think is there's different ways they could have split it up, and they could have allowed each individual wallet to, represent one individual holder and just issue all BFX tokens to people who got their account completely wiped. But that was they probably started at the very top wallets and worked their way down when they were transferring money out. So those are their biggest customers. That's their whales. That's the people they want to invest in BFX tokens and become equity investors. So they socialize the losses over all the small fish as well as the big fish.
Question, because I genuinely don't know. For the wallets that were literally emptied opposed to just haircut, were they reimbursed their 64%, or are they sitting at $0 and a lot of BFX tokens?
Now they're go ahead.
I was going to say, they're sitting at a loss right now. They just have a shit ton of BFX tokens, or there's been side deals made. Or that's the rumor anyways.
That's terrifying.
Well, but everybody took a straight percent haircut, right? Like the people who lost all the Bitcoin in their wallet, they can still withdraw 60-something percent.
Right. So they can withdraw USD. So if your Bitcoin holding was 0 and they had USD in there, they took their 30-something% haircut there, providing they didn't make a side deal, and that can be withdrawn.
Okay.
Yeah. They cut not across just the Bitcoin wallets, but the USD and LTC and ETC too, right? Did people have those cut?
Everything that they have got cut.
I
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
that they changed, actually. They changed all ATC and LTC holdings into BTC. Which confuses me, because where were they trading that?
Well, I actually agree with Phil that this is probably the closest to a quote unquote liquidation scenario, but I feel like it's almost kind of a false choice of like, hey, that they could have handled it differently, but regardless, they're going to have a certain amount of dollar losses
Yeah.
that they were going to have to deal with. They got to find equity for. It's just a matter of how they did it, and they're making statements saying yes, we have enough in holdings to cover all of our liabilities without converting between assets, right? Like they were short a bunch of Bitcoin, but they cut everything, so they must have either put in some of their own BTC reserves or went on the market and got OTC Bitcoin to make up for the percentage that came out of other cryptos and USD to make up for that. So, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily believe it. Maybe that's just me.
So the hacker took from the big accounts, smaller accounts were left untouched, and then Bitfinex bailed out the bigger accounts for 70% ish, right?
Yep.
and then everyone else got a haircut. So really, it's like the smaller accounts just paid for the bigger accounts' losses, and
Do we
That's
know
where
that
you're
that's
going to get your
true,
class
or
action.
is that the rumor?
I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know.
That word on the
That's
street?
the
Okay.
current agreed upon conjecture.
That's what
Okay.
I'm hearing.
Agreed
I don't
upon
know if
conjecture.
it's
I
true.
like that.
I don't remember Bill saying anything about it. I don't remember Zane reading anything from Zane. So, but
That's
yeah,
I'm just saying in that way because of like the way we were told. Well, not even we were told. We can look at the accounts that were taken balances of, right? Somebody made a list of that. So if your account wasn't hacked, you lost money, and if your account was hacked, you lost everything. But then they had to pay back the 70 whatever 64% or whatever it is. Yeah, so I don't know if there's anything else to say
I
about
mean,
the haircut.
well, the interesting thing about people kind of defending Bitfinex and maybe having a bias towards wanting to believe whatever they're telling them is, you know, they're sitting there promising, oh, we're going to hopefully get equity investors and everything else within like 6 to 8 months. So really, how long do you have to, you know, pull people along and tell them, hey, don't worry, keep trading on Bitfinex. Hey, don't worry, keep trading on Bitfinex, hoping you'll get your BFX tokens paid back and be made whole. So I mean, there's a lot. It's not even necessarily Stockholm syndrome. Everybody who has BFX tokens there now is bought in. They own equity in their own mind in Bitfinex, and they're going to push Bitfinex because until at least they get their tokens paid back, and then who knows what. But you know, I feel like be careful who you listen to and how much money they have involuntarily invested in this exchange.
Right, and they basically created a cheerleader out of anybody who's holding the BFX token, and they created bigger cheerleaders out of people who've bought other people's BFX tokens, right?
Yeah.
So, and then this theory that VFX is buying the token, Phil obviously denies this. There's no way of us knowing at this point. I'm not saying this is what's happening, but there's no way of knowing. So it's like we can either continue to trust people's word, or they can show us in some way eventually. You know?
I
Yeah.
can tell you there's no market maker right now in BFX token. So this is just straight buying and selling.
Bitmax
So there's
started
that.
trading BFX tokens today, right?
But who's buying the 0.3 BFX tokens or whatever? That's
Whales,
my
I'm
question.
assuming.
Anybody who thinks that 30 cents on the dollar is a good deal and that Bitfinex is going to come through. I
Yeah,
mean,
people
that's your gambler,
arbitrage
right?
accounts. Yeah.
Right. So, who's to say Bitfinex doesn't later go to the person who accumulated at 0.3 and buy it at 0.5 or whatever? I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
Bitfinex
that's
is saying that
obviously
they'll buy it back at a dollar value. Like they're even talking about putting a price cap on BFX token at $1. A lot of people booed it, but if Bitfinex only values the thing at a dollar, even if it's trading at 30 cents, then who cares?
I'm genuinely confused in what situation would a token that guarantees a $1 payback would be trading at more than $1.
Manipulated fuckery market.
Ah, yes, Bitcoin.
Yeah. The same way any other shitcoin gets pumped that's done nothing in years, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that's what I was talking about earlier, was saying, all they really have to do is the people because they're already saying that they're going to hand choose the people that they want to allow to buy equity. Well, if they're already talking to those people, they can buy the equity, the potential equity, which is more valuable to them than a dollar, right? Like, so I can buy a BFX token if they've already told me you're an accredited investor and we already pre-approve you. Don't worry, we'll approve you and make sure that you can get equity. They can just buy them up right now, and they're actually worth more than a dollar because they'll get equity instead of just the dollar redemption. And Bitfinex gets to wipe them off the books. So by allowing this asset to trade, they can, without even buying anything themselves, and he can sit there and say, oh, hey, we're not going to buy it. None of our subsidiaries are going to buy it, whatever. I mean, all it takes is just a couple words. People see the investment opportunity and they're going to take it. It doesn't really have to be like massively orchestrated. All it has to be is just a we're looking at you. You're holding a lot of BFX tokens, and we think you've already been verified with us. You're an accredited investor. We know you have a high net worth. We would like you on board. And that person is going to go buy a bunch of BFX tokens at 30% of their worth.
I mean, just so we have a figure to talk about, $150 if they're going to buy them back, $150 in tokens right now. If they're really going to buy them back at $1, will net you $500. That's a pretty good risk reward if you actually believe it.
Yeah.
Right, but the question is, when does this happen? Because there's no ETA on the roadmap. There's no plan. Obviously, it's pretty soon for any of that stuff to come out, but again, it's like you're expecting people to trust holding this without any sort of assurance other than your word.
Oh, I mean, you should basically take every bit of money that you can withdraw off of Bitfinex right the fuck now, unless you plan on investing in BFX tokens, and just hold it off the site and just deal with your debt at this point with them until they get a plan together. I mean, I would give it a couple more weeks before, giving any kind of trust. You want to make sure that lawsuits don't immediately get filed and get like fiat accounts frozen, everything else. All that's a possibility within, who knows when, and you won't know until after it's frozen, and they can claw back fiat.
Right.
So
and
you might get a withdrawal, and they might ask for it back 3 days later.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned that. Even if they go into bankruptcy X amount of months away, they can still claw back the funds.
That's correct. If USC goes to anybody that U.S. court has a banking relationship with, they can claw back that deposit if there's money there. So,
I mean, no matter how you look at it, and whether you believe Phil and everything else, and you can be a true, you can be a true believer. You can look at what they're saying and go, I believe it. They're going to come back online. Everything's going to be just fine. You have to look at it from the perspective of counterparty risk. And right now, their counterparty risk is just off the charts, I would think, until the legal uncertainty plays out. So, I mean, that's not trying to bash anybody, not trying to be, like taking one side or the other. I think that's just a smart, objective observation in this situation.
Yeah, I think you could either A, dump it immediately, your token, or B, hold on to it for the indefinite future. I don't really see any other reasons to do any other things, and definitely remove any of your funds from the exchange. Yeah, so the question of fairness, I think it created a burden on everybody, that like this expectation that they're supposed to wait for Bitfinex to pull through. And Phil mentioned 3 ways that this could happen. Either they could redeem it through customer fees eventually. Obviously, it'd be better if they had some sort of figure, like 2 or 3% per trade will go towards token buyback. I don't know. 2-3% of the fees. I don't know what their operating costs are, obviously. He mentioned 2 other things, the equity thing that we're talking about, and then the
outside investors.
Outside investors, yeah. So, I don't know. Who knows?
I feel like there's just going to be a month or two where they basically run on, their fees, and they're going to start fighting their legal battles with the money they've set aside. And if they get investors, they're either going to get them really quick within the next week. For anybody that's willing to jump in, anybody else is going to want to wait a month or two and see what the legal kind of let some of that legal uncertainty play out. They've got a nest egg that they're basically running off of. That's probably 10. They said 10 to 13% of the BFX tokens they owe. So, they'll make it for a little while. They're not going under tomorrow. I think the biggest risk at this point is getting accounts frozen.
Right.
I think they have decent lawyers, I would hope, because they fucked up a lot and they haven't gone to jail yet. So if they're not like completely underwater under lawyers' fees already, then they probably have a decent lawyer. So.
And then regarding their liquidity on their book, like, do market makers even get in on that anymore? I mean, like, isn't that just a slippery slope of people continually removing everything from the exchange? Like, how can they even think about bringing back margin trading if they're not even going to let U.S. users operate on that side of the things. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I
I
mean,
just
there's
at
going to be a lot of
a,
VPN accounts getting made.
I'm at a place of no hope as far as like the reality of them ever returning. Yeah, and the other thing was people being forced to do all these things without a choice. Like you said, it's a false choice. Um, and it was kind of weird. There wasn't a premium when everyone was exiting. Is there any reason why we think that is, other than they just announced it like an hour and a half before it happened?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, really, the premium would be an indicator of how confident people are of being able to get their fiat off of the exchange. So at this point, the indicator says that people are confident they can get fiat off. They're willing to sell.
It it seemed like the buying wasn't as quick as we expected it to be.
Yeah, so Phoenix only had a $14 premium at its height, give or take, when that occurred over stamp. I have a feeling that was because there literally was nobody on the book to get out at a fair value, right? There's nobody willing to sell. I mean, what was it like? At one point, it was under 1,000 coins to get to 750. Some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least that
don't-
we could see, right?
You don't accumulate massive amounts of Bitcoin on an exchange. You're not a whale, a market maker, without having a little bit of a strong hand and without more than likely having had a conversation personally with PGP at some point. If you're not, if you're still making markets on this exchange at this point, you're doing something personal to try to feel this out. So I mean, I was expecting a lot of the small people to buy and get out immediately, but they immediately when they came online they had a market maker put up sell walls, so they foresaw that behavior. And I mean, Phil's a trader, put two and two together. There's a reason why there was big sell walls, and it ate up most of the demand, and there was only so much of a premium. Now it's just kind of hovering, but at the same time, people are pulling their BTC off the exchange. If people aren't pulling fiat off the exchange at the same rate as they're pulling BTC, which they've been drawn down by like 50% of their cold wallets that we saw, if there's still a lot of USD on the exchange and they, for whatever reason, get panicked, now there's even less BTC to buy. So, I mean, I think there's still a scenario where you could have a pretty big run, but it depends on a lack of confidence in fiat withdrawals, or if they freeze bank accounts and they still allow trading and Bitcoin withdrawals, it's going to get fun. But that's bad behavior, honestly. At that point, they should shut down if their fiat accounts get seized.
And the LTC ETC thing is all up and running again, right?
Yes.
Yes, all trading's up.
So yeah,
LTC went to zero.
Oh yeah.
Phoenix's books still look like shit. It's basically like 1,000 coin right at the front of the book within $5, and then after that, there's nothing.
And there wasn't anybody whose withdrawal didn't go through by now, right?
Yeah, most people are saying it took like 1 to 4 hours. Pretty much everyone that went through.
So at least that happened, right? Because there was a point where
Yeah, that's nice.
Now, the fact that they paid out like half of their cold wallet is a good sign. That is a trust builder.
yeah.
I'd like to see it go to almost zero and have everybody say that they got the money that they had on the exchange, and that would be a very almost verifiable sign of trust right there.
How many days would wires take? Would it be done this
Wires
week?
usually take like 5 to 7. I've seen.
Yeah, depending on where their banking entity is.
Yeah, that's true. It depends.
So that won't be completed realistically until like next week, right?
Yeah. Probably. I mean, at least
So-
in the U.S.
Right. Would they run into problems at that point if they have no user funds on the exchange? Or is that not even a big deal because they're not margin trading at this point?
I
There's
think
no
they're more
margin
likely
trade.
to be short Bitcoin.
Yeah. From the withdrawals, certainly. But yeah, there's no margin trading right now, so there's no capital being tied up here, or as far as users go.
Yeah, if they end up being short on Bitcoin equity available, then I mean, it'll be Gox all over again. No one will be able to withdraw for a while until they become, I don't know, solvent through accumulating fees, I guess.
Yeah, PGP said there wouldn't be a fee holiday, which I don't completely disagree with, but I mean, I don't know. They just took 36% of everybody's account, and they forced them to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's a
Right?
pretty big fee right there.
So they made a lot of money
Well,
on that, right? I don't know what the
Yeah.
fees are. I
I
don't
mean,
know what the
I
exact
get it though,
percentages.
because they just wiped. If they did contribute much of anything, then they probably wiped most of their operating capital, and they've got a set amount for their payroll and all their expenses for a certain number of months, and they have to be frugal at this point if they're gonna survive the legal challenges that are probably about to come up. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's smart to not maybe look at people and say, sorry, we have to keep the fees.
I get it, but
They're all investors now. You
were
remember? They're
the
all investors now,
was
so
were
they're going
the
to accept.
were the fees taken into account? I wonder when they decided on the 36% value.
I can tell you I was charged fee on the swap that they broke, so.
You were.
Yup, I was charged that, at least that day of swap I was charged on the one that they broke.
So again, I mean, this might all come out eventually, but it's just like, what the hell, you know?
That probably just comes down to them being limited in how they. I could almost see that being like at the time they did the calculation, they just didn't have a way to back it up
Yeah,
to something
yeah.
previous. So just that's how their system works. It spit out a number and they just said go with it because they had to resolve it quickly. I mean, I could see some kinds of like small mistakes like that just being something that gets caught in the wash.
And then some final little things are, who's going to get fired, if anybody? How many times is this going to keep happening? And then is there going to be any restructuring? Like, is there going to be a hostile takeover of, equity from the tokens or anything? Is that even possible?
That would be ideal if they got a
Yeah.
big investor.
What I see most likely happening, and I'm kind of guessing here, is that as long as no legal action ends up, coming to any culmination, I don't see anyone getting fired or restructured, although I'm not sure about what will happen with how they'll eliminate the BFX token, their debt, and all of that.
Yeah, I don't know how many people they actually have working. I don't know if it's 10 to 20 or.
Someone in the Telegram was saying that their Hong Kong offices are already understaffed. So obviously they're not going to make it public if people are getting the hell out. But
The number that PGP threw around was around 25 people.
that's tiny. Yeah, they don't have a lot of people that they can fire. I don't see them letting people go.
I don't know. That's all I got. Just disappointed in the community's involvement in continual trust on the exchanges that don't deserve any, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you see it happen with like political candidates and access to the press's access to them, and I feel like there's a little of the same thing going on with, the TeamSpeak where people they want PGP to come back. They need the sweet nothings, and he's a nice guy. I'm not trying to dog on him, but people want him to come back. They want to hear the updates, and so they don't allow people to really hit him in the little pieces in between. And he does sometimes kind of go, well, I can't comment. They let him get away with it, but some of those are important questions. So, but there's a little give and take there. So I can see both sides.
I understand that he's a PR person, but I can imagine it's pretty difficult to be in the midst of possible legal workings. Also, your company's under a lot of fire, and someone's mic is reverbing.
Yeah, that's fixed.
All right, perfect. But I'm imagining that a lot of people are limiting what he's able to say. it's maybe not under what information he has. Also,
I kind of
someone's camera's
respect.
on.
I kind of respect PGP's unprofessionalism. So he's willing to keep coming on, and it is very unprofessional at times, but he continues to do it. So I'm willing to give him a pass, even though it is completely in his own self-interest to be there. So nobody forget that. You know, everybody has their incentives for their actions.
Yeah,
So
no one's gonna hate a guy for not wanting to lose his job. So,
yeah, but he does come on and he says shit that is ridiculous, and you know, but he keeps coming on. I gotta respect him. He's
Mhm. Seriously, whose camera's on? What are we looking at? That looks like someone's ceiling.
Vix, did you want to say something?
I think Vix is still muted. I'm not sure if his mic is on.
Hold on.
Oh, hello.
The Olympics are on.
They are.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to get back to is I think some people spend too much time, like, I don't know what the right word is, because I certainly think that PGP should be treated cordially, like he shouldn't be basically like screamed at, and should be rather civil. But I think some people, it's like I know I've listened to Just Light, I don't know how many times. Like the second PGP comes on, he's not even asking PGP a question, he's just thanking him. And it's just like, you know, ultimately PGP is there for business reasons. He's not your bro, he's not your chum. He's there because somehow it helps his business, ultimately. Now it may appear at times where he's not all business-like, but that's actually part of him making his business more successful by appealing to those other senses. I mean, he's very smart in what he does, because he doesn't just simply show up for a support call and then leave. You know, he hangs out, and I give him respect for being so involved in the everything that's crypto, but don't let that cloud your judgment thinking that, you know, that makes him better than other people. And more so, even though I've met, you know, Phil and Giancarlo and spent 2 days with them, they're good people, but, you know, if ultimately they don't have a business that's going to make me money, then, you know, it kind of stops there.
Yeah.
I like PGP, but I don't put any money on their exchange. I haven't for a while. Luckily, I pulled some money out before the last set of problems at the data center, and I pulled out the last little bit then. But that's mostly because other exchanges serve my needs better. But you know, PGP is good at what he does. He's a natural, so it is PR.
Yeah, that's really all I've got. I don't know, Vix, do you want to say anything else?
Nope.
All right. I guess that concludes it then. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Talk to you later.
Cheers, y'all.
Boom.